Using Law Review Indexes for the Environmental Legal Research course at Boston College Law School. How is index searching different from full-text searching? With full-text searching, you are trying to predict patterns of language used in the documents themselves. With index searching, a human being has looked at the document and tried to describe the main points, subjects, according to a controlled vocabulary called subject headings, so that all documents on the same subject are listed under the same subject headings. So finding one relevant document will lead you to others on the same subject. The result is that indexes will lead you to articles all about a particular topic as selected by a person who looked at the documents and understands the content. A full-text search takes you to any document that uses your search terms. Full text can be a very useful way to search for many things, but when you are just starting to research a new topic, it can be better to start with an index and get articles all about that topic, rather than all the documents that use your search terms. The first law review index we will look at is one originally called the Index to Legal Periodicals, now called the Index to Legal Periodicals and Books. This is the granddaddy of law review indexes. Before there were legal search engines, this was basically the only way lawyers found law review articles on particular subjects. Designed for browsing by lawyers, this had a list of broad legal subject headings used to describe legal writings in the front of every bound volume to help the researcher find the correct subject headings. Even though you'll be using law review indexes online, I think you can understand how the index actually operates by looking something up in the print version of the index. Today we're going to look for lawyer jokes. First we look for the word lawyer in the list of subject headings. Here we get a cross-reference that tells us this index doesn't use the word lawyer, it uses the word attorneys. Going to the index listing for attorneys, we learn that in addition to the term attorneys, this index also uses a lot of related terms, including barristers, prosecutors, and solicitors. So jokes about attorneys could be listed under attorneys, but they could also be listed someplace else. Because it is usually a good idea to try more than one approach to finding relevant articles, we try looking for the word jokes and find nothing. Moving on to the synonym humor, we make a breakthrough. Under the heading Humor, Legal, it says, See Legal Humor. Just to be sure, we look in the subject heading list under Legal Humor, and there it is, listed along with an additional suggestion that we may also want to look at the heading Law and the Arts. Now we go to the main part of the index, which includes entries under subject headings and authors' names. Here, there are a number of references to articles that an indexer has decided is an attempt at legal humor. In this particular volume, we see one of my favorites, the Gettysburg Address, as written by law students taking an exam. Further down on that same page, there is a huge entry under the title Nova, Humor in the Law Review Symposium. We can see here that one of the contributors to the symposium is Dave Barry, who isn't a lawyer, but who wrote a humor column for the Miami Herald. Down at the bottom of the index entry, we can see that this was the winter 1993 issue of the Nova Law Review. In addition to another Dave Barry article, there was also a top 10 list from the writers of the David Letterman Show. This looks promising. While we still own paper copies of this index, it is much easier to use law review indexes online. Link to this index from the All Law Library Databases link on the Law Library homepage. A search for Index to Legal Periodicals reveals that this index is time divided. The Index to Legal Periodicals and Books contains articles from 1980 to date, as well as law books published in 1993 and later. The Index to Legal Periodicals Retrospective covers the years 1918 to 1981. The current Index to Legal Periodicals, while it has a similar name, is more of an updating service for law review indexes and not a continuation of this Index to Legal Periodicals. This is the advanced search page for the Index to Legal Periodicals and Books, which allows us to build a Boolean search and also to specify particular fields for our text to appear in. This is a title search for the symposium we found in the books in the Nova Law Review called Humor in the Law Review. This search gets us just one result. The subject heading for this article is changed. It is now Law-Humor. While the index itself does not contain the full text of this article, or even the list of articles in the symposium that appeared in the paper index, we can quickly go to this article by clicking the Find It at BC link. The Nova Law Review has physical copies on level 1 of the law library and is also available in the Hein Online online journal library. By accessing the article through this link, we are able to authenticate as a BC user and go directly to the symposium in Hein Online. Back in the Index to Legal Books and Periodicals, now that we know the correct subject heading, we can search for law-humor. This search gets us access to 617 potentially funny articles. The first one links to full text. Had we applied the links to full text limitation to this search, we would have only gotten 43 articles, missing the Humor in the Law Review symposium we started with, and to which we do have full text access, just not through the H.W. Wilson Company. This is an example of the record for an article it would have been pretty difficult to find without an index. This cartoon in the Bench and Bar of Minnesota doesn't contain the word humor anywhere in the magazine, just in the index subject heading. A good illustration of the main difference between index and full-text searching, looking for words that describe the article rather than words used in it. The second major law review index is called Current Law Index in print and Legal Track when accessed electronically. This index was started at the beginning of the computer age, so even though you could use it in print, which we will do to see how it is organized, it began with a different theory of indexing. Each article was classified according to the Library of Congress subject headings, which is an outline of all the knowledge in the world. Subject headings were then given subheadings to describe the content with as much detail as possible. Instead of putting all the funny articles under the heading Legal Humor, each article is put under a general heading like law or law students or law teachers. Subject headings in the index contain see also references followed by subject headings with individual articles under the subheadings. The funny articles about law appear under the subject heading law, under the subject heading law, subheading anecdotes, cartoons, satire, etc. It is here that we find the Gettysburg Address article that I'm fond of. And under the heading Law Students, subheading Anecdotes, Cartoons, Satire, etc., is a Hope to be Humorous article on the Confessions of an Admissions Committee. And under Law Teachers, Anecdotes, Cartoons, Satire, etc. is one called Minutes of the Faculty Meeting, from a symposium on humor in the law from the Brigham Young University Law Review. And under the heading Judges, subheading Anecdotes, Cartoons, Satire, etc., are additional potentially funny articles. As I mentioned, the electronic version of this database, when purchased from the publisher, is called Legal Track, and here it is on our BC Law Library database list. When this database is licensed to other vendors, it's called Legal Resource Index. To see if it's included in your Westlaw subscription, type Legal Resource Index into the universal search bar and click on the source name when it appears. Find it on Lexis Plus the same way, although it is no longer included in our academic Lexis subscription. So a click on that link will produce a resource unavailable page at the time I made this video. But let's try our basic search for humor in the Law Review Symposium in the Legal Track basic search page. This search failed to get the symposium because the default on this system is to restrict to full text documents. If we remove the restriction, we now get 48 records, a separate record for each of the articles in the symposium. These index entries do not display the subject headings, but they are still searched by the search engine. We can see the subject headings assigned to these articles by clicking on the Filter Your Results by Subject. Here we could get to the same subject headings we found in the print volumes. To access and search by subject heading subdivisions, we need to first select Subject Guide Search. First, we run a subject guide search. As we start to type, a drop-down menu will suggest subject headings in the list. We've chosen Law Schools. Once we click Search, we get a list of subject headings that used our search term. We choose to look at the subdivisions under Law Schools, but we could have also requested to see related terms that could be broader or narrower than the term we started with. Looking at the subdivisions under Law Schools, the index tells you how many articles have been classified under that subdivision of that subject heading. Scrolling down to Humor and Anecdotes, an updated subheading, we see there are 28 articles that have been classified under this subdivision of the subject heading Law Schools. Of these 28 articles, 18 are in academic journals and 10 are news articles. Again, clicking Find it at BC will allow us to authenticate as a BC user and link directly to an article.